For my thoughts on all the latest happenings in the NFL in a completely relaxed, unscripted format, be sure to check out my channel, JG9 News. And now, on with our feature presentation. The intentional safety is one of the most unique plays in all of sports. And I don't think I'm over-exaggerating when I say that. Seriously, name me any other sport, especially in the United States, where you intentionally give points to the opposition to increase your chances at winning. You lose the battle to win the war. How the intentional safety works is that because a safety is worth 2 points, while a field goal is worth 3, and a touchdown can be worth anywhere from 6 to 8 points, depending on what happens on the conversion attempt after crossing the plane, one team will intentionally give up 2 points to reduce the chances of giving up a larger sum of points. As an example, if you're up by 4 points with 5 seconds left, and you're faced with 4th down, and you're backed up in your own end zone, why punt the ball away and risk giving up a touchdown? Just take the snap on 4th down, run into the back of the end zone, fall down, and give up 2 points and win the game that way. There are a ton of other reasons like that where you might take an intentional safety. And I've done plenty of videos on the intentional safety before, especially as it pertained to the 1970s. If you want to learn about the time it happened in a game between the Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers in 1973 on Monday Night Football, which was, amazingly enough, not the first time we saw the intentional safety in the NFL, click the card in the upper right corner. And if you want to learn more about the time that it almost happened a few years later in a game between the New York Giants and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1977, click the card in the upper right corner. Long story short, the intentional safety is one of the most unique plays in all of sports. Speaking of unique, this channel is one of the most unique in all of sports YouTube because we talk about all things in NFL history weird and wacky and obscure that you might not know about, like this incident today. So if you like that sort of thing, be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss a single video that we post. And thanks in advance for your support. However, what happens when there is an intentional safety where no one knows whatsoever what the rules are? What happens when there is an intentional safety that gets botched because the referees completely screwed up and forgot how to do their jobs? Well, this man right here is Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Bill Cowher. And I think it's safe to say that he's had his fair share of run-ins with officials over the years. There were multiple times during the 2000 season where Cowher and the Steelers were issued apologies by the NFL for an official blowing the call, as if those apologies made any difference. There was the infamous time during a game against the Minnesota Vikings where Cowher made contact with an official for blowing a 12-man on the field call, even going as far as stuffing a still photo of the incident into a referee's pocket, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And there was this incident from 1997 they have probably forgot about or have never seen before, because even if you watched the game, you might have turned it off because you thought it was over. However, nearly 3 decades later, this deserves a deep dive, because this could go down as the dumbest intentional safety of all time, because this was an intentional safety where the referees did not know the rules, and it almost cost the Steelers in a big-time way. Because this is the story behind what has to be, in the history of the NFL, considering the circumstances, the strangest intentional safety ever. Before I talk about the actual play in question, and what was so bizarre about it, because you're not going to believe the fact pattern with this intentional safety, we need some context to understand not just the importance of this game, but how the game itself was going. It's October 5th, 1997. It's week 6 of the NFL season, and as we're roughly 1/3 of the way through the earliest start date of a season yet, we've got a battle on our hands over at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. For the main team in our story, the Steelers, to say that this game was a big one would be putting it lightly, and not just because it was a divisional game. Pittsburgh did not get off to the best starts of the season in 1997, starting 2-2 through their first 4 games and boasting a -25 point differential. Now, they had a game on their hands against the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens. If the Steelers lost this game, then not only would they be 2 games back of the division lead, seeing as Baltimore would be 4-2, and the Jacksonville Jaguars were 3-1 entering the week, but they'd already have 2 losses in the division, making things incredibly tough from a tiebreaker standpoint if they wanted to claw their way back into the thick of things, especially because the schedule makers did not deal them a good hand later in the season, with 4 of their final 5 games being on the road away from Three Rivers Stadium. This game, in many ways, felt like a must-win for the Steelers. Now, the bad news for Pittsburgh was that things could not get off to a worse start if they tried. To start the game off, the Steelers trailed the Ravens 21-0, thanks to 2 touchdown passes from Vinny Testaverde and 1 touchdown run from Bam Morris. On Pittsburgh's first 3 drives of the game, starting quarterback Cordell Stewart threw 3 interceptions. However, the good news was that, somehow, they were able to right the ship, as despite trailing 24-7 at the half, the Steelers exploded in the second half to come all the way back and take a 42-32 lead. Yes, the Steelers, after scoring 7 points in the first half, somehow scored 35 in the second half, with Stewart redeeming himself thanks to 3 second-half touchdown passes and a 74-yard touchdown run, making it one of the longest touchdown runs by any quarterback in NFL history. Pittsburgh's defense, after an awful start, came to play, forcing 5 turnovers, and late in the contest, when the Ravens were trying to cut into the deficit, they forced a critical fumble to basically end the game right then and there. At this point, the Steelers are up 42-32, and the Ravens have no timeouts available at their disposal. There are about 16 seconds left in the game. This one is just about over. All the Steelers have to do is punt the ball away, and there was no way whatsoever that the Ravens can come back and win this one, even if they return the punt all the way for a touchdown, just because of the number of crazy events that would have to happen in quick succession. If you're this man right here, Bill Cowher, you know exactly what you have to do to get out of Baltimore with a win. Just be smart. Just do the sensible thing. Just punt the ball away, and you're good to go.
He'll take the intentional safety as Josh Miller goes out of the end zone. There's a flag down.
Wait, why the heck would you take the intentional safety there? How does this make any sense? This is a dumb decision if I've ever seen one. And I'm not talking about NBC just forgetting to show the start of the play for some reason. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen a head coach do in my life. And I do not say that lightly, because I basically make my living off of coaches doing dumb things. Let's just go over the scenario one more time. It's 42-32 with about 15 seconds left in the game. You have 2 options. Option 1 is what any sensible person would have done here, which is to punt the ball off normally. Let's say you punt the ball off normally, and there's a very good chance that it does not get blocked and does not get returned for a touchdown. Congratulations, you just won the game, because there is no way whatsoever that the Ravens will be able to score twice in the final 5 seconds. However, even if the punt gets returned for a touchdown, so what? That makes it 42-39 with about 5 seconds left, and the Ravens have to recover their own onside kick from their own territory, which is an insanely tough, low-percentage play. And if they recover that, they'll only have time for one more play, which is a Hail Mary from 60 yards out, where few quarterbacks can even reach the end zone. If you punt it off normally, you either keep it at a 2-possession game, or in the crazy scenario where it does become a 1-possession game, it would take an absolute miracle for the Ravens to do anything. However, option 2 is the option for idiots, which is taking the intentional safety with 15 seconds left. By doing that, you turn it from a 42-32 game into a 42-34 game, which means that you now turn it from a 2-possession game into a 1-possession game through your own choice. Now, you have to punt it back to the Ravens off the free kick, which could get returned to the house for a touchdown, completely screwing you over. And even if it doesn't get returned for a touchdown, because of where you're punting this ball from, the Ravens are still going to have time for 1, maybe 2 plays, where they can get it into the end zone on a Hail Mary at midfield. By taking the intentional safety, you are ensuring that the Ravens touched the ball last in a one-score game and have a chance to do something. If this was a 7-point game before the punt, and the score was 42-35 or something like that, no problem with this call. Really, no problem with it at all. Heck, if this was before 1994, and 42-32 was a two-possession game, as was 42-34 because there was no two-point conversion, no problem whatsoever. But at 42-32 under today's rules, why the heck would you do this and give the Ravens a chance to win the game that they otherwise would not have gotten? It makes no sense. It shows a complete inability to do math or understand the situation of the game at hand, and it makes Bill Cowher look like an idiot, undermining him and the team's hard work in making this incredible comeback happen in the first place. And I was not the only one to think this. Far from it, in fact. Take a listen to the announcers for this game, Tom Hammond and Jim Kelly, as they try and make sense of this, and why you would turn a two-score game into a one-score game when you now have to punt the ball to Jermaine Lewis, who would eventually go down in NFL history as one of the greatest return men of all time.
Jim, what about this strategy? You know, now they take the intentional safety. Yes, only 11 seconds are left, but Jermaine Lewis is capable. Score a touchdown, two-point conversion good, and you tied the game.
Exactly, and especially if he gets enough yardage to get him in a Hail Mary position where Vinny Testaverde can throw the ball. He can throw it at least 75 yards, so
why wouldn't the Steelers just punt it away without taking the safety?
Well, they could have done that. They could have punted it away, and then they would have had to worry about two possessions. That's what I probably would have done, is go ahead, punt it, and then they have to score twice. But
yep, that just about sums it up. I was confused, Kelly and Hammond were confused, and just about everyone was confused, especially when Lewis had a nice return off the free kick to set the Ravens up in midfield with a good Hail Mary opportunity to potentially tie the game with a two-point conversion. Now, fortunately for the Steelers, the reason you probably don't remember this play is because the Steelers ended up winning the game, and it did not matter in the end, as Vinny Testaverde's Hail Mary attempt fell way short, giving the Steelers a 42-34 victory in what is, as of this video getting uploaded, the second highest scoring game in the history of the Steelers-Ravens rivalry. But afterwards, a lot of the talk was on whatever the heck this man right here, Bill Cowher, was thinking with that idiotic intentional safety. And understandably so, because it gave the Ravens a lifeline and a second chance for no reason whatsoever. One writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said what everyone was thinking. Not to second guess, but what was the rationale behind the intentional safety in the fourth quarter? And another writer, Bruce Keaton, wrote an entire column on why the intentional safety was stupid, to which I'll read the highlights of this column, because this is basically if Dumb Decisions was in print form in 1997. Stupid is as stupid does, and a tactical blunder is no less a blunder in victory than it is in defeat. What's the worst case scenario in punting? The punt is blocked, and the bad guys fall on the ball for a touchdown. You still lead by 3 points, and the bad guys must kick off to you. If you recover the onside kick, they are history. Even if they recover it, they are probably toast. They might not have time to get in position for the field goal they need to tie you. And if they do, their kicker may miss. Parlays like that are the reason that horse players die broke. Suppose, though, you order your punter to take a safety. Now, you're leading by 8 points, which, the last time I checked, was equal to 1 touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And you have to give the ball back to them, after which, they have time to throw a Hail Mary pass into the end zone. Maybe they catch it. Maybe you're called for pass interference. Maybe the next thing you know, you're in shock, and the game is in overtime. That is your punishment for tempting the fates. Yeah, that about sums it up. I can't really say it any better than he did. Which raises the obvious question. If it was so obvious that in this situation, you do not do this, then why the heck do the Steelers do this? Why did Bill Cowher, who is a great coach, a future Hall of Fame coach, mind you, do this? And why was this not an episode of Dumb Decisions? Well, because it wasn't Cowher's fault. This was a mistake by the officials. The officials almost cost the Steelers the game. Here was what was supposed to happen at the end of the game. On third down, Quarterback Mike Tomczak was supposed to take the snap, wait a bit to bleed some clock, and then fall to the ground. That's exactly what happened, as this is the moment where he goes down, with 48 seconds left on the clock. Now, there definitely was a clock issue here, as it stayed on 50 seconds for way too long, and there should have been about 45 seconds left, not 48, but regardless, the plan at this point was to drain the 40-second play clock all the way down, and then have the punter run out of the back of the end zone for an intentional safety. And in that regard, the intentional safety makes a ton of sense, because by the time punter Josh Miller runs out of the back of the end zone, the game is over, and the clock is at triple zeros. There is no reason to punt the ball, because why risk injury? Why potentially risk a guy being out for a period of time on a tackle gone wrong or a block gone wrong? Just take the ball, run around, go out of the back of the end zone, and end the game at 42-34 with no time left on the clock. That was the plan. Except, the officials didn't put 40 seconds on the clock. They put 25 seconds on the play clock. For some reason, the referees only put 25 seconds on the play clock, even though, per NFL rules, as you probably know, 40 seconds are on the play clock between plays when the clock is running. That's a 15-second difference, and that is a huge difference, because when Cowher told his punter, Josh Miller, what the game plan was, Cowher was under the assumption that the referees would set the clock right and would have a 40-second play clock. Instead, it was a 25-second play clock, which enabled the Ravens to get the ball back off the punt. Said Cowher, "When I saw the guy blow the whistle to stop the play because of the sack, I think there were 42 seconds left, which was fine. I said, let's go back, let the 40 seconds run down, run around, and let's take the safety." We lost 15 seconds with the play clock. When Miller ended up stepping out of bounds, there were 11 seconds left. Seeing the 25-second clock was set, I was trying to get a hold of the official, and no one would listen to me. I probably should have instructed Miller to kick the ball, because at that time, obviously, taking the safety was not the right thing to do. But my intentions were to run the clock out and not give them the ball back at all. And yeah, that's a pretty freaking big blunder on the part of the officials. The Steelers had the game won, and they almost lost it because of an officiating error that wasn't even a judgment call or anything along those lines. They almost lost it because an official didn't set the clock properly, and it made Cowher look stupid in the process, even though his strategy was 100% sound and was 100% the right one. And I genuinely wonder, if the Ravens did somehow win this game, whether the result would have counted. I know the NFL doesn't change the results of games after they happen. Look at the Fail Mary, and that bad calls happen and are unfortunately part of the game. And the reason why the league doesn't change the outcome of a game afterwards is because there are a ton of other hypotheticals. And if you change one call, you have to look at every other call too. But this is a bit different. This is an administrative error. This wasn't a holding penalty that wasn't called, or a pass interference that was missed. This was the referees not putting time on the clock that should have been there. This is like a baseball team losing a game because the umpire thought that a play was the third out in the bottom of the ninth when it was only the second out. If the referees do their jobs here and put 40 seconds on the play clock, per NFL rules, then the Steelers win the game. There is not enough time for the Ravens to do anything, and the safety would have been the final play of the game. There is no hypothetical that you need to dissect. The fact that the officials almost cost the Steelers the game because they didn't set the clock properly? Absolutely mind-blowing. And what's crazy about the game between these two teams behind me right here is that, incredibly enough, I can't believe I'm saying this, this was not even the most controversial ending to a Pittsburgh Steelers game in 1997 against a divisional opponent on the road. Seriously. You might remember a few weeks before this game, they took on the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football. And at the end of that game, Bill Cowher infamously tried to trip a Jaguars player as he was returning a blocked field goal at the end of the game for a touchdown. There was also a bizarre controversy in that game because ABC did not show how that game ended. So no one knew that the Jaguars kicked an extra point at the very end changing the scoreline and making a lot of bettors very confused in the process. If you want to learn more about both of those controversies, you can do so by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But it's safe to say, in 1997, Pittsburgh Steelers games were an adventure and a half. I think it's fair to say that this decision by this man right here, Bill Cowher, is the most confusing and the strangest intentional safety in NFL history, because it is quite the plot twist. At first, you think that Cowher is an idiot for letting the Ravens back into the game for no reason. And then, you realize that Cowher's strategy actually made a ton of sense, and was under the highly reasonable assumption that the referees would put 40 seconds on the play clock instead of 25. Because that's what the rules said, and because that's how much time is on the play clock with a running clock in between plays. It was an intentional safety where no one knew what was happening, and where not even the referees knew the rules of the sport that they were supposed to be officiating. Because on this October day in 1997, because of a massive officiating blunder that has been forgotten about nearly 3 decades later, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this safety was the furthest thing from safe. Get your official Jaguar Gear 9 merchandise by going to jj9shop.com, and be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Join me every Wednesday night where we'll play NFL Trivia for cash prizes at 9 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch. To learn more about the history of college football, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 8. To learn more about the history of Major League Baseball, subscribe to Jaguar Gator 7. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.